Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. The reason I chose this word excitement is because something that is international standards and certification and type of thing that people go looking for, they think it's tedious and hard work and it has nothing but a cert or something that you get on the wall. So let me just set the scene first. Let me take you back to 1945, towards the end of the Second World War. A guy called William Deming had come to the fore as being this master of being able to deliver to the front, to the army, to the whole war effort, a master of this kind of supply chain delivery. And that helped speed up the end of the Second World War. After which they said, thank you, Mr. Deming, we don't need you anymore. At the same time, in Japan, they were broken. The country was in an awful state, physically, morally, economically. And they called on William Deming, this guy, and said, William Deming, could you come and help us rebuild our country? And he said, yes, I will. And you will be a world economic power again within 6 years. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they did it in 5. Now roll on to 1978. The US, right, was in a very bad state because they could not provide products and services properly. They were losing the economy. They were losing it to Japanese, so much so that in the early 80s, CNN conducted a series of talks called, If Japan Can Do It, Why Can't We? If Japan can do it, why can't we? This all goes back to a guy called Deming. Now, unfortunately, William Deming, he died. And he took all the secrets to the grave. Right? Wrong. He did not. It's all compiled here in a way of how to run a business brilliantly. Rolling on to myself. I worked in the corporate for a couple of years, or many years, and I got fed up because I found I couldn't do a day's work. What was put in as supposedly quality and controls and systems was just a bureaucracy. After 20 years, I left it, went out on my own. While I was out working for myself with consultancy and coaching, I was approached by a colleague, a friend of mine, and he said, would you like to join this ISO group? We're setting up a team, a small limited company. And I said, no, I said, I've had my fill of all these standards and stuff. He said, have a look again. So I went in and I had a look at this standard. And it turns out I found it was a whole lot of common sense. Everything I opened up was either a great idea, or how could you run a business without doing this, or that's a very clever approach. So I said, I'm in. So from then on, the last couple of years, I've been specialising in this ISO standard. And I use the word excitement because it really excites me. The first day when I left the first client, when I joined with this group, was my business colleague Phil said, you see, Vincent, he said, that's why I love this job, because every day that we leave a client, we leave that company better than we went in. And that's what keeps me going every day that we do this consultancy. The question then is that ISO and you, by the way, ISO is called International Standards Organization. There's over 1 million companies and growing rapidly of companies that go to get this certification. Because what it says is that not just do you run your company really, really well, but an independent auditors come in and certify that you are achieving best practice in your company, in your industry. So it's about best practice, not regulation and minimum. What companies? Well, it doesn't matter what type of company you're in, whether it's high-tech or low-tech. We've got companies from quarrying to software development to freight delivery to hygiene products. It doesn't matter. But here's the thing. If your company does business into the corporate world or does business into government departments or local authorities, by and large, they are insisting that you come in with this standard. If they haven't already, it's on its way. And when all you have to do is put a footnote on it, must have ISO 9000. One sentence, and it can create a huge amount of work. But the great payoff for this ISO standard is, and by the way, this is my own dog-eared version. I've had it for yonks, and I'm proud to say I use it all the time when I go in visiting my clients. If you have a company, or your company is doing business into large companies, you're going to need this certification. Also, if you're going to go international, it can be very, very worthwhile. But the great thing is that everything that you do with this standard, that you implement and put into your company, will make your company better. It's not about doing things for documentation reasons or for bureaucratic reasons or anything else. All you got to do is go in and take this document and work through it to make your company high performance type of company. And I'm getting a note here. Can you hear me okay from now? Right? So let me just describe some of the companies that we are doing business with. We have a quarrying company, a freight company, a software development company, a company that scans documents and shreds them, a medical devices company. We have hygiene companies. All of these, right? All are available. Oh yeah, and I see Joyce there, the office supplies company. We have a big company we work with in that space as well. So all I would say is that when you hear about this thing called ISO standards, and you say, oh my God, do I have to get this? The workload it's going to put onto me. What's the payoff? Is it purely to get this statement? What you know is that it will always make every part of your business work more effectively, more efficiently. Just a couple of ideas on this whole approach to ISO. It's got two key philosophies, and the first is the process approach. So you look at your business not in terms of assets or fixtures or products, but in terms of process. And this actually leads into GDPR as well. So you take all your process and you look at them again and again and define how they're actually done so that they're as efficient as possible. And the second is something that's really close to my heart, and that is a thing called risk, about risk management. Risk is about planning ahead for something that might or might not happen. Risk is about being preventive, or actually taking action now that you can avoid a certain risk. They're the two philosophies of process approach and risk management. There's a couple of philosophies or a couple of requirements in here as well, and one of them is what I call is clause 5. It's about leadership. So even though we were talking about certification, this thing is about leadership. How do you lead from the top down? How do you lead from the front? When an auditor goes in, the first thing they want to do is talk to the managing director and say, what are you doing to run an excellent company? And the managing director can't say here, she says, oh no, I get my sales director to do all of that. This is about involvement from the top all the way down, so that every employee is in the process of looking at quality and how to make things better. And for example, one company that I went into, within about 10 minutes you could cop there was something going on about bullying. And you say, well, that's not really about systems. No. Well, it is, because it on itself is unethical. But also, if you have something like that going on, it could create a very bad public relations if that were to get out. If there's a court case, if there was somebody got sick, or something else, this can affect the supply of products and services. But but in another case, when we went in, we found that a company, this was an audit, and the company's soft SLA with the IT company was a year out of date. But all we did was amend the document, get it redone. There was a failure, a finding against them, but it was rectified on that day, and they got recertified again for another year. So I'm coming close to coming to the end now. But the main message I want to share with you is that this ISO standards can be really worthwhile, really interesting, challenging, but really worth coming out the far end and knowing, irrespective of a certification, that you have a brilliantly well-run company that will go against the tide of economic change or risk or any crisis going on, that you're in the best possible position to A, take advantage of opportunities, and B, to be working against any risks or anything going wrong against the company. I think I'm ahead of time here, so I might just throw it out if anyone has any questions. Could you just a bit louder? Yeah, good question. Good, quite, yes. You talked there about food safety regulation. Yeah, here is the difference. The regulation is minimum standard, whether it's financial regulation or food hygiene regulation is here, below which you should not or may not operate your business. ISO is about best practice. It's up here, and it's industry driven. It's voluntary. There's no legal requirement on it, but and as the best practice increases, go up and ever, then that becomes the datum line for the ISO standard for companies to go and reach that. In clause 4 at the very, very start, it tells you to list off all your regulatory, where you're expected to, with the regular, and that you have them listed and that you tick them off as a prerequisite. So it's inclusive, but it goes way beyond. Any more questions from anybody? So let me just, how are we for time?
You're absolutely fine.
Okay. But let me just summarise again. ISO, the site standard, is for any company, big or small, but especially for companies that are doing business into the corporate world or are planning to do business into the corporate world or planning or giving business into government, or if there are high-tech companies or highly specialised companies. By the way, there is another worthwhile reason to do it, and that is if you have a business and your intention is in 3, 4, 5 years in the future of selling it on and moving on to something else or retiring, then what really, really is a great asset to you is to sell it with an ISO certified, that stamp on it, because an outsider coming in knows that your company, from an independent point of view, now has that company is really, really well run and is ready for any kind of risk that could come against it. That's another reason to do it. So I just want to thank you all for your great attention here now, and the question that was given now is very appropriate. So thank you very much. Bye.